Jai Hind everyone. The topic which we are going to cover is Introduction to Cloud Computing, which is the part of Unit 1 under the subject code BMC 014. So when we say cloud computing, as we can see that the cloud computing, it is composed of two words. One is cloud and another one is computing. When we say cloud, cloud is nothing but it is a metaphor for the internet that is being used. Anything which is residing over the internet. And what's the computing means? Computing means any goal or result oriented activity. So when we say cloud computing, when we combine these two things, that is cloud and computing, it means that any goal or result oriented activity which we are performing over the internet. So basically, cloud computing is storing or accessing the data and programs over the internet, instead using your system resources. So in cloud computing, they don't have any dedicated server at their own place. They don't have any resources, whether in terms of hardware or software. Instead, he uses these services which is being provided by some vendors, which we call here cloud service providers. For it to be considered cloud computing, we need to access the data or programs over the internet, or at the very least have that data synced with other information over the web. This is the NIST definition for the cloud computing, and this definition covers all the aspects of the cloud computing concept. So, according to this definition, cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, for example, network, servers, storage, applications and services, that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So basically, we are using a shared pool of resources, and these shared pool of resources, they can be configured, that is whatever be the user requirement. According to the user requirement, these resources can be granted to the user, and these resources, they can be your network, servers, storage, applications or services. These resources, they can be rapidly provisioned, that is granted and released with minimal management effort or any interaction with the service provider. You just need to take a subscription, you need to pay for these resources, and you will get these resources by your CSP. So this cloud model, it promotes availability and is composed of 5 essential characteristics. We are going to discuss these characteristics later on. What are these 5 characteristics? They have been designated by the NIST. First one is on-demand self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service. 3 service models, that is, these are the 5 characteristics. Now, in cloud computing, we are having 3 service models, that is cloud software as a service, SaaS, cloud platform as a service, that is PaaS, cloud infrastructure as a service, that is IaaS. These are the services, they are being according what kind of resources the user is using. If the user is using only services, then this is SaaS. If the user is using the platform over the cloud, then this is PaaS. If the user is using only the infrastructure, that is your hardware, then in that case, it is your IaaS. Beyond these 3 service models, we are having 4 deployment models, that is how these 3 services is being granted to the user, is being given to the user. The first deployment model is my private cloud, where a single organization is using any one of these services. It may be a community cloud, where these services is being given to a specific community. We are having a public cloud, that is for the general users, and then we are having a hybrid cloud, that is a mix-up of private, community and the public cloud. Now behind this cloud computing, we are having key enabling technology. The very first one is fast networks, that is your 4G, 5G and so on. Powerful, inexpensive server computers. This is another technology behind the cloud computing, because we are being using resources, and if these resources, they are not cheap, they are not powerful, they are not of high capacity, then the cloud computing concept will fail. And the last one is the virtualization, that is your these resources, these shared pool, this is being virtualized, and these virtualized resources is being provided to the users or the organizations. Let's discuss the essential characteristics of cloud computing one by one. The very first one is on-demand self-service. Here, a consumer can unilaterally provision the computing capabilities. For example, server time, network storage, as needed automatically without requiring the human interaction with each service provider. That is, whatever be the requirement of the user, according to that requirement, these services, whether it is IaaS, PaaS or SaaS, these services being provided to the users, and the user can get these services in a hassle-free manner. That is, a simple form or a simple pay model can work over here, and with the help of that model, the user can get access to those services. Broad network access, since we have seen that the cloud computing term, cloud is the metaphor for the internet, and since we are using the resources over the internet, and these resources, they can be high computing resources, then in that case we need a good network, that is a good broad bandwidth network we require here. So the capabilities are available over the network and accessed through standard mechanisms that promote use by heterogeneous, thin or thick client platforms. These cloud services, we can avail these cloud services whether on a thick or thin client. That is, it can be your laptop, it could be your mobile phone. Third important characteristics is resource pooling. That is, the provider's computing resources are pooled to serve multiple consumers using a multi-tenant model. Now, this is a very important concept when we talk about the cloud computing. That is, in the case of the cloud computing, we are having a multi-tenancy model. What's the multi-tenancy model says? It says that the multiple resources, they can be used by multiple consumers simultaneously. So here, with different physical and virtual resources dynamically assigned and reassigned, that is, once you log in, you will get the resources. Once you log out from the CSP website, then these resources got released, and as soon as you again log in the system, then these resources are reassigned. There is a sense of location independence, that is, context awareness is there, in that the customer generally has no control or knowledge over the exact location of the provided resources, but may be able to specify the location at a higher level of abstraction, that is, country, state or data center. Examples of resources here, it includes storage, processing, memory and network bandwidth. Fourth characteristics is rapid elasticity. So the capabilities here can be easily provisioned and released, some cases automatically, to scale rapidly outward and inward, commensurate with demand. To the consumer, the capabilities available for provisioning often appear to be unlimited and can be appropriated in any quantity at any time. For example, when you are using a Google Drive over the internet, then some amount of the storage you got automatically, you got free. But if you need more size, then you need to pay for it. Now once you are paying to the Google, then it implied that you have taken the subscription for the Google for that much capacity. And once your subscription got expire, automatically your allocated resource, that is the extra space which the Google has provided you to access, is deprived of. Then you don't get access further get access to that particular drive space until and unless you renew your subscription. So it is a rapid elasticity concept. Measured service, as in the previous same example, we have seen that you need to pay for the services which you are using, and for this, these resources, these services being monitored, and as much as you use, only for that usage part you need to pay to the CSP. So measured service, what it says, cloud systems automatically control and optimize the resource used by leveraging a metering capability at some level of abstraction appropriate to the type of service. Resource usage can be monitored, controlled, and reported, providing transparency for both the provider and consumer of the utilized service. That is, the billing part is also being taken care of in the case of cloud computing. But the thing is that this billing part is only being provided if you have taken the subscription or if the CSP is willing to provide you these details. Now come on the next heading, that is the benefits of the cloud computing. The very first benefit of the cloud computing is least cost. What it says that cloud computing has revolutionized how businesses access IT services, infrastructure, and software by removing or reducing the need for capital investment. That is, you are using the resources over the internet. So in this case, you don't need to buy or you don't need to go for the license cost. In the case of the software services, you just go over the cloud and you get the access through the through your login. So here you need to whatever your demand is, you will get over the you will get from the CSP, and you need to pay as you go basis. That is, whatever you are using, only you make the payment for that. Due to the features such as remote upgrades and supports, the in-house IT department, if needed at all, require for fewer resources, saving companies even more money. Next benefit is power and capacity. The cloud offers practically unlimited data storage and processing power. This is due to the pooling of computer resources such as geographically distributed servers, whereas before only the richest companies could afford to set up necessary local computing infrastructure for large-scale data operations. Any business can now tap into this potential by simply signing up to a cloud computing service. Backup and recovery. Although local data backups are still advisable as a precaution, that is due to the mitigation for the internet service loss, cloud backup offers an easier, less resource intensive method to protect your data. Most cloud providers, they distribute backups between data centers in different countries to ensure reliable access at all times. That is, these vendors, they are automatically taking the backup, and if some calamity happens, if some mishappening happen, then in that case they are also doing the recovery part. But if you have taken the in-house resources, then in that case what will happen? Backup and recovery, it becomes your headache. But in this case, since you are using the resources over the cloud, over the internet, then in that case it becomes backup and recovery, it becomes the you could say measurable part being adopted by the cloud service providers. Next benefit is the system integration. For many companies, integrating various locally controlled computer systems and apps can be a logistical headache. and consume a lot of in-house IT resources. The cloud makes system integration much more manageable and in some cases automatic because your CSP is doing all these activities for you. You don't need to go for this. You don't need to hire extra human resources for this. You don't need to buy extra computer resources for this. Another important benefit is flexibility. Change can also be a painful process for locally based IT networks, requiring considerable in house development and testing, all of which has to be paid for. But in some cases, companies are forced to carry on using a system that is not fit for the purpose simply because the cost to adapt it is prohibitive. So, in that case, with cloud computing, software platforms, and infrastructure can be changed and scaled up, or you can release these resources in a much more easily manner to meet the operational needs. So if you are having a in-house resources, whether it is your platform, your software, or your infrastructure, then to manage those resources, to integrate those resources with your business, it becomes your headache. The testing and the deployment of all these things becomes your part. But in this case, since you are using all these things over the cloud, then the cloud manager, the cloud service provider, it is managing all these things. You can change you can change the resources. For example, currently you are working on a project which require a Linux operating system, but later on the project which you are working, it requires a Windows operating system. Then you can simply change the environment from Linux to Windows without buying any softwares, without going for any licenses, all the things being taken care of by the CSP. You can easily scale up the resources, you can easily add up the resources, and once you have used those resources, you can easily release them. Accessibility. With heavy lifting performed by the cloud, employees of a company can normally access the applications they need remotely, whereas in the pre-cloud age, they might have needed to travel across the town to access a company machine. They can now usually log in via a secure password from a laptop or even from your mobile phones, from your smartphones. Speed to market. Many competitive industries rely on getting to market quickly before their competitors have a chance to catch up. A lot of competition is going up in the market. So in that case, the small companies, they need to chase the market. They need to release their products as soon as possible. So if they are buying the resources themselves, it is very costly to them. But with the cloud, they are catching the market. They are releasing their products in a early, you could say, in a much early fashion. So the stakes have now been raised with the growth of cloud computing. For example, some cloud providers are delivering significant manufacturing IT solutions for their clients by allowing the innovative products and services to be deployed and production scaled up in a matter of weeks rather than months. Security is enhanced. Although many business owners are concerned about the security implications of the cloud computing, a compliant cloud service provider is more likely to improve the security. The economies of scale which apply to computer resources also ensure that the best security measures can be put in place with high-level oversight from IT security experts. The most reputable cloud service providers are also committed to complying with data protection measures, particularly since the industry is moving towards the shared liability between data processors and the data controllers. Cloud computing is a level playing field for the SMEs. So for the SMEs, a major advantage of the cloud is that it has enabled them to compete as equal with the big business by assessing and developing software and systems that would have been too expensive in the past. Competition is now much more about innovation and market appeal and less about how much need to be invested. It is also it is also providing the environmental protection. How? Given the large amount of energy required to run the huge server farms and other hardware needed to power cloud computing, it may not seem to be that environment friendly. In actual fact, the centralization of resources leads to a net reduction in energy consumption, while the smart management of the resources leads to less wastage. Hardware also tends to be located close to the energy plants, reducing transmission losses. The environmental impact of computing can be driven down further by choosing companies with a renewable energy policy and encouraging cloud service providers to adopt ecological goals. But yes, cloud computing, it comes with its own risk and the limitations. So what are the risks and the limitations? Vulnerability to attack, network connectivity dependency, vendor lock-in, limited control, and downtime. So possible downtime, what it says, cloud computing makes your small business dependent on the reliability of your internet connection. When it's offline, you are offline. If your internet service provider suffers from frequent outages or you are having a slow speed, then the cloud computing may not be suitable for your business. Another thing to consider is how dependent your business would be on cloud reliability. Even most reliable cloud computing service providers, they suffer from server outages now and again. Another drawback is vulnerability to attack. In cloud computing, every component is online, which exposes potential vulnerabilities. Even the best teams suffer severe attacks and security breaches from time to time. Since cloud computing is built as a public service, it's easy to run before you learn to walk. After all, no one at a cloud vendor checks your administrative skills before granting you an account. So all it takes to get started is generally a valid credit card. So in this case, your system which you are using, it may be prone to attack. Security issues. Although cloud CSPs, they implement the best security standards and industry sensitive data, any CSP is expected to manage and safeguard the underlying hardware infrastructure of a deployment. However, your responsibility lie in the realm of a user access management, and it's up to you to carefully weigh all the risk scenarios. Certifications, storing data and important files on external service providers are always open up the risk. So any discussion involving data must address security, privacy, especially when it comes to managing. So it's your responsibility to check with the CSP the security issues and the privacy it is providing to you and to your data. Limited control and flexibility. Since the cloud infrastructure is entirely owned, managed and monitored by the CSP, so it transfers the minimal control over to the customer. So to varying degrees, the cloud users may find they have less control over the function and execution of services within a cloud hosted infrastructure. So the cloud provider and user license agreement, that is EULA, and management policies may impose limits on what customers can do with their deployments. Customers retain control of their applications, data and services, but may not have the same level of control over their backend infrastructure. Another important limitation is the vendor lock-in. So vendor lock-in is another perceived disadvantage. Switching CSP is something that hasn't yet completely evolved. Organization may find it difficult to migrate their services from one vendor to another. That is, if you are having some services you are using over the Google and you now want to switch over the Amazon, then it's not very easy. So the differences between vendor platforms may create difficulties in migration from one cloud platform to another, which could equate to additional cost and configuration complexities. Gaps or compromises made during migration could also expose your data to another level of security and privacy breaches. Cost saving, adopting cloud on a small scale and for short term projects can be perceived as being expensive. Perhaps the most significant cloud computing is in terms of IT cost saving. So, pay as you go cloud service can provide more flexibility and lower hardware cost. However, the overall price tag could end up being higher what you have expected. Until you are sure of what work you want to perform, it's good idea to experiment with a variety of offerings. You might also make use of cost calculators made available by different vendors, for example AWS, GCP, etc. So, what are the factors you need to consider for opting the cloud computing? The very first factor is the cost benefit ratio, that is BCR. If the cost benefit ratio is very high, then only you can go with the cloud computing. Speed of delivery. Before choosing the CSP, it is mandate to evaluate his services thoroughly. The key point here is to find out whether an opting the cloud, the delivery speed of your business increase or not. If it increases, then only go with the cloud. Usage capacity. It is a good practice to evaluate beforehand at how much capacity of the cloud will be used by you. Then the regulated data. While opting for the cloud, you should clearly identify that if your data required to be regulated. If yes, then you can't go with the cloud. Local IT structure. It is important to understand the corporate and IT structure of your organization. The migration from local to cloud can be painful sometimes. So this is all about the whether you need to go for the cloud or not. These are the references which I have used while preparing the slides. Thank you and Jai.